Alright guys, so today we'll be doing elements of a story and we'll be using Bobbing Jones as our template. So let's read. Dudley was tall, gap-toothed and jovial. He seemed to be in his late 20s and it was said that he already had 18 children scattered in several districts. He spent most of his time on the road and had developed a reputation for his agility in hopping, trucks, and buses. None was too fast for him to get on or off. He liked making dramatic get-offs at places like squares where he had an audience. But his favorite get-off was to pretend to fall flat on his bottom in the middle of the road. He lived with an aunt, and although he had no visible occupation, never seemed to be without money. There were times when he disappeared from the district for long periods, and no one knew where he went. But there would be occasional rumors of people seeing him at unexpected places down in the country. Ossie liked meeting him on the road, for each time they met, Dudley had something new and interesting to tell or show. He was full of riddles, tricks, and games, and he often showed Ossie well-made toys which he had made himself, presumably for his children. Once, Ossie met him on his way home from school, and he asked Ossie a riddle, which he could not guess. Dudley stood in the road and grinned and said, "Riddle me this and riddle me that. Guess me this riddle, and perhaps not. Hell at the top and hell at the bottom, and hallelujah in the middle." Ossie proposed a few answers, but Dudley rejected them all. "I give up," said Ossie. "Potato pudding," laughed Dudley. "You bake it by putting fire at the bottom and fire at the top, and the sweet pudding is in the middle." So, for Dudley, his physical characters would be that he was tall, he had a gap between his teeth in front, and he was jovial. So he was always happy-go-lucky, right? Now, in terms of his personality, all of the time, they introduced Dudley as being fun and as being a trickster because he would get off of the buses and do tricks. One of them would be to pretend to fall flat on his bottom in the middle of the road, and he would ask riddles, and he was just very playful. He was full of riddles, tricks, and games, and he often showed Ossie well-made toys. So he had a special talent of making toys, right? So that's his physical characteristics, his personality, his special talents. Are there any other interesting details that you have seen from the reading here, this piece, this extract? Let me know. I think that the fact that he was able to jump on and off without damaging himself was very remarkable and interesting. He was very agile in hopping trucks and buses. Imagine hopping onto a moving truck or bus, or even hopping off. I think that's an interesting detail. Now we will go on to talk more about Dudley, but I want you to know that when we're describing characters, their personality, their physical traits, just like Dudley, that we're doing one of the features of a story. We're learning about characterization. A story should give readers an idea of what the main characters are like, not just by describing what they look like how he was tall and his teeth had a gap in the middle, right? So it's not just about his physical features, like what they look like, but also through their words, like the things that people will say in a story, or that they will do, that will show us, that will tell us about them, or show us who they are. So by him asking the riddle, and by him jumping off of buses and trucks, will show that he is agile and funny, very jovial, and playful. So this picture that is created in the story of your character, or your main characters, it's not like a photograph. It's not static, because a character, like Dudley, or our impressions of the character may change or develop. So when we read some more, we will see how the characterization of Dudley is developed. So we're continuing with the Bobbing Jones story, But we're going to be practicing our tenses for our verbs. So we have some verbs in brackets here: sweep, pour, like, and we're going to be changing it when we read. So, one summer afternoon at about 3 o'clock, the rain swept across the northeastern hills and valleys and poured down heavily on the village. Ossie could hear the rain hitting their zinc roof. He liked to hear the sound of the rain, for it gave the house a cozy feeling. So the past tense of give would be gave. He cleared the center table, took out his drawing book, and began to draw. The book was given to him by Miss Princess, the postmistress. His mother showed her some of his drawings, and she copied them with tracing paper and embroidered them onto her curtains and pillowcases. Ossie was pleased to see his drawings being appreciated in this way, and now, when he drew, he kept Miss Princess in mind. He preferred to draw motor vehicles, buildings, and boxers, but he also drew plants and animals, since she liked these. He looked up from his drawing and glanced at his father, who was dozing in the rocking chair. His mother was sewing in her bedroom. She was sewing with her machine on the bed while she was sitting on a bench. Sometimes she earned money by making clothes for people in the district. During the lull between showers, Ossie could hear the sound of her sewing machine. Here we can see a picture, but without the picture we would have still been able to tell where the story was set, the setting. Now the setting of the story has to do with the time and the place that it was happening. So the time would be about 3 o'clock, and it would have been raining. All of that is describing what was happening at the place. It was raining, and they were where? In their house. The rain was hitting their zinc roof, and the house had a cozy feeling, right? And the mom was in her room, her bedroom. That's how we know it's a house again. And the father was also in his rocking chair, right? And they were talking about them being at home while the rain was sweeping across the northeastern hills and valleys, right? So they were in the village, in their house, while the rain was falling at 3 o'clock. And that would be the setting. So remember we spoke about characterization and describing the people in the story and their personalities and their talents and stuff, not just how they looked. Now we're talking about the setting. And the setting has to do with where the story is taking place, any background information, like how it was raining and stuff. And the reader may have to infer some of this information, meaning that they may not come out and say every little thing. But based on the little context clues that you're given, you can make your own inferences. Right? So example, Bobbing Jones set in a city. Is Bobbing Jones set in a city or in the countryside? It didn't exactly say, but we're thinking it's a countryside. How do we know? Well, if I'm going back to the story, it says that the rain was falling the northeastern hills and valleys down heavily on the village. Village. I don't think that we'll be seeing a village in the city, but in the countryside. And also with valleys and hills and stuff, I think it will be the countryside. So they may not come out and tell you everything about where the story is set, but they'll give you enough information so that you'll be able to infer some of the information. So setting is time and place, and characterization has to do with the personality and the physical features, etc., of the people in the story. Now I want to move on to plot. Plot is also a feature of stories. So let's see. A plot is basically the storyline, and it's developed through you speaking about what's happening in the story, narrative, like she was walking down the street and then a stranger approached her. So that's the narrative. You may describe what's happening, so through description, and the characters may be talking to each other in the story. And through the dialogue, or the things that they're saying, you can also basically figure out what's happening, your storyline, what's going to happen, what has happened. So remember, plot is how you're developing your story and how you're introducing the reader to your storyline through narrative, descriptive writing, and through what the characters are saying. dialogue. So often the plot will involve problems, and you'll have responses. And almost always it will involve some kind of conflict, where one person's thoughts or actions will conflict with another's, and the conflict may or may not be resolved in one or more climaxes, right? The event will not always be described in order. Sometimes there will be flashbacks. A good story will also create a feeling of suspense in the reader. So you're basically maintaining the interest of the reader, because you want the reader to be wondering what will happen, right? So plot. So let's read over here. Let's see, there's a problem in here. Let's see what's going to happen next. Someone knocked urgently on the front door. Oi, anybody here? The voice sounded familiar. Ossie got up and opened the door. Mas man. A distant relative of theirs was standing on the veranda. Ossie knew him as the man who blew the cow's horn to announce Banana Day. He was wearing a crocus bag as a raincoat. You know, it's a crocus bag, right? So you go to the markets with. One corner of the bag near the bottom had been shoved in to cover his head. The rest of it covered his shoulders and back. His face was very serious. Is your father in? Ossie turned and called his father. Papa, Mas man come to see you. His father got up and came onto the veranda. Come help us catch the yam thief, said Mas man. Which thief? Where? Remember, I told you dialogue can tell you what's happening. So now we know that there's a thief that needs to be caught through the dialogue, through what the characters are saying. Which thief? Where? Mas Percy caught Dudley in the field, thieving his afu yam. He used the rain as a cover, but Mas Percy and some other men were sheltering in Mas Percy's hut and saw him. It can't be Dudley, cried Ossie. They ignored him. The news spread fast, and said Mas Man, they are now chasing him up the riverbed. We need some men to block him from the other end. I'm coming, said Ossie's father. He went into the bedroom and came out quickly, wearing his hard boots and carrying a crocus bag for covering. He made his first bad move. He said as he put on the bag, thieving in his own district. I am coming, said Ossie. No, you are not, shouted his mother from the bedroom. You are staying right here. So the issue is somebody stole the afu yam, and it's in the district that he lives in. And who stole it? They are saying that it could be Dudley.